So don't buy a house in East Tennessee or Southwest Virginia or really anywhere without checking these things. They are things that normal buyers who want to go about this on their own and think they don't need a pro to walk them through. Trust me, I've seen it. Story time. Okay, so I met a seller this week. They wanted to list their house and everything was great. I went over the market, stats when I was preparing to go meet them. And I thought, okay, well, this, without seeing the home, I don't definitively say this is how much the house is worth. But I had an idea, a range, and was going through the house, and I thought, wait, those bedrooms that we just saw, do they have windows? And the seller was like, no, this is like a derm home or an earth home, which means the back of it is built into the hill. And we're in East Tennessee, the Appalachian Mountains. So that's, not unheard of. Now, it wasn't one of those that you see on Instagram or on YouTube that was like round. It looked like a regular house. It was an awesome kind of chalet type house, but the back of it was built into the hill. Well, whoever built it did not put windows in 4 out of the 5 bedrooms. So what does that mean? Okay, there's a thing called egress. Egress means that you can safely exit the house in the event of a fire. So you have to have either the proper size window and it must open, or a door outside to be considered a bedroom. What does this mean? Let's say you're a buyer and you love darkness. You don't like the light. You hate it. You don't want any of that. Well, the bank is going to send an appraiser, and the appraiser is going to say, nope, not a real bedroom. Yeah, you put it under contract for $350, but this thing's worth $250. So you go back to the seller, and the seller's like, I'm not selling it for $250, and the deal's dead. So that's a cautionary tale, because I had to tell the seller, we have to overcome this by putting in windows, or it has to go down to a 2-bedroom. And so that's where that conversation led, and we'll see if they're going to list it. I'm not sure, but I'm always going to come with knowledge and also honesty. So I would rather tell them up front than go back, get a contract on the house, and it not appraised, and this is why. And I couldn't live with myself. I know better. So I'm looking at my notes. Radon. Okay. Do you know what radon is? Honestly, I didn't until I started dealing with it here in East Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. Radon is a gas that comes from the earth, and it's been seen or proven to make people sick. So the buyer usually can choose, like with your home inspections, you can choose home, termite, you could do structural engineers. There's a plethora of inspections that could be chosen. Radon is one of those that a lot of people are checking just to make sure that everything's safe for you and your family. So that's another thing to be aware of. And typically a radon inspection is like $300 or $400. So it's not a cheap thing, but it's something that you may or may not want, but just be aware of it. Okay, septic and sewer issues. So being that we are in the mountains, septic is not unheard of. A lot of people are like, oh, I only want sewer. Well, you will not be getting the acreage that you want, more than likely, because acreage equals you're remote. You're out on farmland, or at least bigger lots, and there's usually not city sewer there. So just be aware of those things, and there has to be a septic permit that I know how to pull. And the biggest thing is, and this can go for buyers or sellers, when you go to sell a house or buy a house, and let's say for round numbers, you want a 3-bedroom and a 2-bath. But when you pull that septic permit that the town already has, they say, oh no, they weren't supposed to build a 3-2 here. It's only permitted for a 2-bedroom and a 1-bath. Uh-oh. Because again, the lender who decides whether they're giving you the money or not, it's going to be like, nope, not doing it. So that's another thing that can kill your deal if you're not careful. So roof age and condition. I had this recently too. We had to negotiate. I was representing the buyers, and the seller said they had replaced the roof. I think it was like 8 years ago, but it wasn't them that did it. They had purchased it, and that seller said they did it. And I said, great, where's the documentation? They didn't have it. So tip number 1, if you're sellers, keep your documentation, keep it safe. Scan it, put it in your email, put it in a hard drive, keep a hard copy as well. keep it, because you're going to need it when you go to sell that house, more than likely. And the reason being is maybe the buyer loves it. They think the roof is fine. They don't care. They just want the house. However, they can't insure a house that has a roof that's older than 20 years old. Home insurance won't touch it. So you don't want to get down the road in a purchase as a seller or a buyer and run into that, well, we can't get the home insured, so we're not going to buy a house that I can't get home insurance on. Like, that's not good. And lenders are going to be like, you have to have insurance. So foundation and structural problems. Structural problems and foundation stuff is not that common. I have seen some that I flat out told the buyers, this is bad. I advise you to walk away. I've had some say, our brother-in-law is a structural engineer. We can handle this, but there's only certain loans that'll work with that. So that's a whole different can of worms. I won't get into that too deeply, but it's something to be aware of. And if there's something in question at all, get a structural engineer to look at it. Okay, electrical and panel issues. This is probably one of the most common things that I run into working with buyers and sellers, specifically GFCI. The little tripping thing on outlets that says if something were to happen, this would safely, cut off. I'm not an electrician. I don't know the terms. I just know enough to tell my buyers and sellers this is important there. And then also what I ran into just last week was there was like a double tap situation in the electrical panel. So that goes with the electrical panel thing. So just make sure that your electrical panel is up to code. If you don't know what that is, ask your agent. All right, water intrusion and drainage problems. We had the hurricane last year, and some homes have had water that never had it before and probably never have it again. But if you're buying a home, you need to ask these questions and see if there's ever been a claim, with that property. You should know, and that way you're prepared and you know what you're getting. HVAC, so the heating and air age and its efficiency. Simply ask how old it is. You can also see, usually there's a sticker on there, but I have seen recently that sometimes they're not coming with the year on it, which is interesting. And then also systems over 15 years are concerning, not necessarily a deal killer. And you can also, with systems, certain systems get a home warranty. And that home warranty could be bought by the buyer, it could be bought by the seller, it could be bought by the buyer's mama. It doesn't matter. And what it is, it's kind of like, how would I describe it? When you break your phone and you go in and you pay like a little copay kind of thing, for $100 you get a phone. It's kind of like that. So, for example, the buyer goes in and says, this HVAC is a little old, the hot water heater is a little old. I'm spending all my money buying this house. I want a home warranty. And the seller says, okay. So there's different levels. Let's say the seller settles on a $600 home warranty, and that lasts for 1 year. And then the buyer has the ability, if those things break, he can call up the warranty company and say, hey, my hot water heater's acting crazy. Can you come out? And that can save a lot of money. So termite and pest damage. Believe it or not, in East Tennessee, we are kind of subtropical. It doesn't rain a ton, but it's got that kind of wetter, I think Twilight, but warmer climate, the movie Twilight. So it's not a matter of if you need termite coverage, you have to have it, because termites love like that kind of dampness. Title and boundary disputes. This is something I don't see like a ton, but it does come up because here it's like, at some point, your uncle's daddy's friend lived beside you and you just said you can use the driveway. But if that's not settled and written down somewhere legally and recorded, when you go to sell the house, it can get messy. Just make sure that's buttoned up. I think that's pretty much the biggest ones. There's like other things like wells and stuff like that. I won't get too far in the weeds, but you see that if you're not prepared for certain things in certain areas, like here in East Tennessee, where these things come up, come up all the time, then you can get yourself in hot water really easily. So if you want to talk about any issues, any thoughts about buying or selling, just reach out. See you next time.